back to PH Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Christina. How are we doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Now we've kind of had a lot of conversations offline, and it's
For
kind of
sure.
led us to this point, which again I've been trying to get you on for a while, but our schedules also are
Our
nuts.
schedules
So,
are the worst.
but just before we get started, if you can give us a little introduction on how you got started in S&C and sort of how your career sort of started.
Yeah, for sure. So I walked on Division 1 at University of Maryland as a javelin thrower. I started throwing like my junior year of high school because I was a pretty avid softball player. I was kind of good at it. And then I had quite a bit of nerve pain going through my elbow because my elbow was like hyperextend. And my parents were like, "You're not getting surgery at 16, so pick a different sport." And throws weren't really huge in my part of New Jersey. So by the time I started it, though, I learned by throwing a football. And I guess I could throw a football pretty far, so they thought I could throw a jab pretty far. Walked on at Maryland and just fell in love with the weight room. I started weightlifting when I was around like 12 or 13 to get out of gym class because I hated it and because I don't want to play floor hockey or dodgeball for every day for 180 days. We had this tiny little weight room, and it was me and two other girls were the only ones that signed up for it. And it was like a former storage closet that they put like one rack inside. So I fell in love with it, obviously going to college and being like, oh my God, this is what a weight room actually looks like. So I loved it. It was probably the one that the place that I excelled the most. I wasn't the best javelin thrower, like especially being a walk-on, you're kind of like pushing against people who have probably been recruited for a while or have been doing this for a long longer than I have. And I had really great people on the team that were helping me, people who were helping me acclimate to what it's like to even like be on a track and field team. And then my sophomore year, I had kind of like a season ending, ended up being career ending injury because I didn't get cleared afterwards. And I broke my leg at ACC championships in 2014. And at that point, it was probably one of the harder things I had been through athletic related. My strength coach really was there next to me the entire time. I'm talking like actually like holding my hand, making sure that I can get through crowds on my crutches for the rest of the meet, and then always made sure to make it a point that I was welcome in the weight room still. I was in like a straight leg brace, locked out for a long time before I could get surgery. And then he was kind of just there for me. And then the strength coaches at Maryland were awesome. And it was a really, really hard process for me. I wouldn't say that at the time I knew how awesome they were until retrospectively looking back that I was a bit of a jerk sometimes, but they always kind of dealt with it because they saw what I was going through. And then I realized like this is something that I could really do for other people as well. This is like the type of love I feel like I was put on this earth to give. And this is the type of service that I really enjoy. So I switched my major. My parents were pissed at me when I switched my major, but then I took like 18 credit semesters for 4 semesters straight to graduate on time. Ended up taking a private facility job with the strength coach that I had at Maryland that went private sector. And then really realized that I liked the college sector a lot more. So I went back to get my grad degree at App State. Something kind of fell through with the program. You just had Peter Ken on the episode, and I was
Mm-hmm.
his strength coach for like 7 or 8 months. And he was really cool. He was super challenging, as one would expect him to be as an
Mm-hmm.
athlete. But he was awesome. I think that we ended up like having a pretty cool relationship by the end of it. Then FSU called when that program fell through. FSU called, and one of the strength coaches who was at Maryland ended up just calling me like a couple days before Christmas Eve in 2017, maybe, and was like, are you still looking to be a strength coach? Are you trying to get your master's? And I was like, yeah, that's wild that you called me. So in a week, I moved to Tallahassee. I started as a graduate assistant with strength and conditioning, primarily with track and field, cheer and dance. It was awesome. And their cheerleading and dance team, shout out to them. Any cheerleaders and dancers who are like in very serious programs that kind of go down to Florida every year and they compete, they are probably some of the best athletes that you'll ever coach. They're always on it. Most of them want to really get better. And I had a really awesome co-ed team, an all-girl team, and team of dancers that were really, really bought in, and I'm very thankful for that. And then the track and field was something I obviously loved because I was on the team. Graduated from there in 2020. Of course, there were really no jobs because it's COVID. So COVID hit like 2 months before I graduated, or 3 months before I graduated. And then I ended up moving home for a little bit. I hadn't really been home much since I had graduated undergrad. I moved home. I worked at a private facility there that I have a really great relationship with Bobby Smith, and who started me out there was Adam Fight. They have
Mm,
been really great. They had been really, really great mentors and people to follow in the field when I first started out. And then ended up getting an offer at Texas State. Wasn't really the place for me. Came back to Monmouth, which was as close to home as I have been. Worked with football for the first time, which was amazing. I kind of miss it every day, but then I'm like, do I sell my soul again to go back to football? The verdict's still out on that. And then I ended up leaving Monmouth and coming to Penn, where I've been going on year 4. So just moving and grooving and growing and kind of figuring out where to move my sailing to next, I guess.
what do you mean when you say sell your soul for a football program?
Well, obviously, I have a lot of great friends in the industry, and there are a lot of things about working with football that I believe are, I mean, excessive. They call it like desk guarding, or like they're just there for so many hours a day, even if they don't have contact with the student athletes. A lot of it is like recruiting related. I'm not saying that it's all completely unnecessary, but there are some parts of it where it's kind of like, why are you bringing them in today when you know that they work 7 days a week? God knows, like 12 to 14-hour days. And yeah, they're making the big bucks for it because I'm doing the same thing. I'm working 12-hour days and sometimes working 7 days a week. When I say sell your soul, there are some people who have large issues being able to separate their work life from their personal life.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've spoke about this before as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I've also heard that I probably shouldn't say this. I'll probably not say it. Um,
you can. I'm an open book. You can say whatever you want.
no, I'll get some people in trouble.
Sounds like a them problem.
Technically, no, it's not them. It's a program problem that they're having to deal with.
Fair.
Yeah. Anyways, what currently gets you fired up in this industry?
This is something I actually struggled with for the last couple of years, what really gets me fired up in this industry. But I think the biggest thing is the relationships that you build with student athletes. For me, because my career in here started out with a strength coach, just like taking it extra steps in our professional relationship. So like me getting injured, I'm one person to like probably just kind of turn inward, and I'm like, all right, like let me get out of everybody's way. Like I can't do everything that everybody else can. And he was willing to take steps toward me instead of just letting me kind of like turn into myself. That's something that I employ today as well. Getting into college, just being a college student in general is such a pivotal time. And then you're a student athlete where everything is structured for you. You have places to be and people to see at certain times of the day, almost every day throughout your whole college career. And while there are really great things about that, there are other things where it's kind of like, dang, do I kind of just get to be a kid in college? So building those relationships with our student athletes and kind of seeing them find the potential in themselves. I always have a lot of conversations where people are like, hey, is this worth it? I kind of think I might quit the team. I think I might do that. Hey, I'm having an issue with my relationship. I'm having an issue with things at home. That I'm willing to be vulnerable with them to be able to explore themselves as humans and then as an athlete. So I like to kind of make the connection between you're using your student athlete experience to develop as a human being. You're not going to be a student athlete forever. Find out what you're doing here that is developing you as your purpose on this earth, basically.
Yeah, I think as well, something I wanted to ask about is like, obviously you were a student athlete that got injured and then you turned coach. How's that transferred over to your athletes now when they do get injured? And obviously there's a
Mhm.
lot of psychological things that can happen. There's a big impact on their career in general. How does
Mhm.
that sort of manifest itself now that you went through it yourself? How do you deal with your athletes now with it? This is a quick shout out to our main sponsor on this channel, TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder is all-in-one platform that hosts programs, questionnaires, testing, anything that you may need for your athlete's performance, you can host it in TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder also now has two different sides, which is OS and Practice. For more information on TeamBuilder, check out the link in the description. And if you use code PACHOCKUP all together, you will get a 30-day free trial.
Yeah, I think I built my whole coaching philosophy kind of around the psychological impact of just being a student athlete, but then injury on student athletes. I wrote my undergraduate thesis on it. Like it was something I almost obsessed over, but now when I employ it, it's kind of like, what are we doing as a department to help support these student athletes and not just forget about them. They're not just a number on the roster. They're not just like another kid who can't get on the field or the court or the track or whatever it is. How are we making sure that they're able to be as successful as possible, even if they don't do their sport again? So at Penn, it's really awesome. We have some athletic trainers that have created a student athlete support group. So a lot of them who have longer term injuries, like anything that requires surgery or anything that requires like months and months of like a rehab process, they have the eligibility to kind of join this group. And then I think Penn is doing a good job at trying to gather, we call it the team around the team, in the support staff. And if somebody gets injured, they kind of go on the Penn Athletics care team list. And we have sports psych, sports nutrition, sports med, obviously, but strength and conditioning and sports administration will all know about it. It's something as big as like, hey, this kid tore their ACL at the soccer at the football game this weekend, or like the biggest thing right now, which you're gonna laugh, is we live in a city and all of these kids have electric scooters and like people getting hit by pedestrians or cars or buses. Like I almost got hit on my bike the other day because this guy just flung his door open into the bike lane. And I'm like, I feel bad for your door, but dang.
Actually, when I was at UW, there was an athlete recovering from being hit by a car and a scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's a huge,
He
we
was
have
on the
so many
return
of
to
them right
play.
now.
He was on the return to play, which I had. So that was a little bit challenging. A, to get him motivated to do the workout, because like it could aggravate whatever he's feeling, but also like trying to push him enough so that he could still challenge said movements.
So sometimes they just kind of give up because they're like, why am I going to lift if I can't play right now?
Mm-hmm.
But that's usually when like those open and vulnerable conversations come in where it's like, well, let's just like blow off some steam. Let's like get you sweating a little bit and see if that makes you feel better, see if it relieves some stress, something like that. Gets them like outside of their head and feeling in their body again. Because a lot of the time they go, I mean, this is kind of like the deep psychological therapeutic talk, but like when you go through something traumatic, a lot of the time you become numb to all of your senses and you're just living in your head. And if you can't feel anything, you're never going to get out of your head. So that's where we come in, where it's like, how can I get you maybe even just breathless from doing a ski erg for like a 30-second on, second off circuit? Can this get you out of your head? Can this get you back feeling in your body? It's a tough game to play though.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, again, I have also went through injuries and went through the whole process of essentially losing my identity. Because like
Absolutely.
all I was an athlete, a rugby player. And then when you get that stripped away from you, it's like, okay, what now?
Yeah.
It's, again, I think it's easier to identify with when you have also went through it. But then it's like, okay, how can I make that difference to potentially what I didn't have to this athlete or client or whatever you have in front of you?
Exactly. Yeah, you kind of make those connections of like, you might compare your situation. I think I'm so far removed from my situation at this point, but when they ask me, I'll kind of tell them like this is what I did. I tried to lean on these people, but you kind of just find whatever can help them. And I think I'm in a unique situation where I just see the athletes so much. I think, I don't know if it's me being in the Ivy League. And I mean, I'll bring some of my athletes to coffee just to kind of say, like, hey, let's get you off campus for a second. Like, let me just check on you as a human being. Because people also tend to forget about that. Like, they're not just trying to come back to sport, but some of them, like, I had to relearn how to walk, and that wasn't fun. And it's something that was, I don't want to go as far as to say, like, dehumanizing, but like, I didn't ever think that at 20 years old I'd be doing that. So none of these kids kind of think that it would ever be them. So how can you step outside of the be hard and like don't let your feelings get the best of you? Like that's just not a reality all the time.
Yeah. Am I correct in saying that in Ivy League, they don't necessarily get scholarships to be athletes? It's just you're a student and then you can partake in sport.
Yeah. So I would say like the big part of the recruiting process for our student athletes is like they do have official visits and they have a whole recruiting process where they have like the dead periods and all of that. But their big pull is like if they can get into the school and then they have scores in which how they would skew like a team GPA in a way. So like how academically successful can they be while on this team? And some of them can be really, really great academically and they're pretty good at their sport. And some of them are really, really great at their sport and they might struggle to get into the school, which anybody would struggle, I think, to get into an Ivy League school. But yeah, they don't do any scholarship or anything like that. They
Mm.
do. There are some people here who do have some NIL deals, but it's usually after they're here already.
Yeah. Does it make it harder to motivate them to perform?
Sometimes. So I would say, like, as a freshman, with them coming in and them adapting, it's hard for them to, how do I say this without sounding egotistical? I create an environment where they want to come into the weight room. And for me, I make sure that they know that it's like a non-negotiable, that as long as they don't have class or something like that, that they're showing up and they're giving their best effort. I think that our coaches do, like our strength staff does a really great job in doing that because we treat them as if we were D1 Power Five. Like this is what being a student athlete is. Now, we don't have priority registration, so there are a lot of class conflicts. We have a really big weight room, but we only have 6 strength coaches. So there are some limitations that we find there. But as far as motivating them with a scholarship, it's not something that I would say I necessarily think about every
Mm.
day because I'm going to treat the best person on the team the same way that I treat maybe the least talented person on the team because they're all you don't have to be the most talented to be in the weight room and work hard. That was something
Yeah.
that I did. I was really, really great in the weight room and I liked to work really hard. And then when it came to competition, I wasn't the best, but I know that I put my best out there anyway. So I
Yeah.
kind of try and create the buy-in in that way. Would I say it's a little bit extra work? Yeah, but I love this part of coaching. I like creating buy-in. I like having them see what they can do instead of just looking at it and being like, damn, I've never lifted before, so I'm probably not going to enjoy that, which scholarship athletes have that issue too.
With sort of trying to build this culture, this buy-in, what are some things that you make sure to set a standard for early on that sort of initiates this response from them?
I think the biggest thing that I talk about with my athletes that I don't necessarily think it's just our Ivy League student athletes, but the biggest thing is comparison. So on a large scale comparison, I might tell my women's rowing team, hey, I know that you come in towards the end of the day. If the weight room isn't up to par as I usually would want it to be, I expect that you guys are still cleaning up everything to the expectation that I have. So they know where everything goes. The bars go here, the clips go here, the plates go here. Sometimes when you walk in, it doesn't look like that. And I make sure to let them know, like, just because you see somebody else lacking, that doesn't mean that you can. And that's not even any shade to any other team. Sometimes it's a team that had to run out to do conditioning. Sometimes it's a coach that ran out to a meeting that couldn't come back and clean up after their team. There's no harm, no foul for that. But at the end of the day, like if my rowing team is coming in and only seeing the hour ahead of them, they're not looking at the hour that was just passed. So I make sure that they're not comparing themselves to any other teams. They're not allowed to slack off, and that's not something that I tolerate. But then within the team as well, like this year I put women's rowing, for example, I paired them either pairs or groups of 3 on their racks, and I kind of made sure that they were all in different classes. And we talk a lot about like you're going to either show up as a really great follower or a really great leader. It's your job to figure out who that is, and it's your job to work together to see how you succeed the best. So if that means one person's lifting 95 pounds and one person's lifting 135, figure out how you can change the weights quickly together and
Mm.
make sure that you're staying on speed with me. I give them some autonomy to kind of figure out, hey, this is how I should do this. But I also give them the guidance like, hey, you don't have to take the 25-pound plate off to put a 45-pound plate on. Just put 2 10s on. I'm not going to lose my mind like some people might, but just make it easier for yourselves. And that way we're in the flow of everything. So I hold them to a high standard. I give them the autonomy to be creative in that standard as long as they're meeting it.
Yeah.
I also give them a lot of face time. So like I'm not just in the weight room. I'm coming to practice. I'm coming to their team dinners. I'm coming to treatment hours, see them, in the athletic training room. And I think that helps them see me as more than just like the person barking orders in the weight room.
Yeah. In terms of like with your rowers, how is their sort of schedule set up, and what does their split look like for however many times that they're in?
Yeah, so they will practice Monday, to my knowledge right now, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They have a bus that goes out to the Schuylkill River where their boathouse is. I want to say it's at like 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and they're on the water at 7. And
Damn.
they go through, yeah, they go through to about, I think the bus coming back is at 9:30 because most of them have 10-15 classes. And then they cut on Tuesday and Thursday, they come into me at 3:30 for lift. I would say they have a little bit of a tougher time because that's just like a huge gap in the day where they have to either fit their classes in there or after lift, and it makes for a pretty long day. I'm sure that they would agree with me. I think in the past, before I got to Penn, they had done something where they lifted before they rode at like 5 or 6 in the morning, which isn't terrible. I don't necessarily know how well that worked for them because I wasn't here, but it's tough too to tell them to not schedule classes at certain times. So it's already hard enough to get them to schedule a class outside of the 3:30 to 4:30 time block. But if I were to do lift after practice at, let's say, 10 or 10:30, then they can't schedule any classes until after 12 p.m. So then
Mm.
they might still be in class until 8 p.m. So really, how much shorter of a day does it make for them? When it comes to my programming, I have to keep in mind that their CNS is getting taxed twice in a day instead of like one big time in a day, which is what I do with my track and field athletes because they come in right after practice. So that changes what I do a little bit. But it actually makes me hold my rowers to a higher standard because I have to get them to re-lock in like 10 hours after or not 10, like 8 hours after they've already been at practice. So that's a little bit harder. With track, they're
Mm.
kind of already locked in, but they have to be locked in for like 4 or 5 hours through practice to lift.
Yeah, and what does their program look like? Like, what are you focusing on when they do have a lot of sessions during the week that do
Mhm.
tax them? What are you mainly looking at?
So for my rowers, I look at like very obvious things like having a longer warm up. So for example, when they're done rowing, they get on a bus and they sit in class for 5 or 6 hours and then they come to me. I make sure that they have a longer warm up. I make sure that in their warm up they have something that is kind of like a plyometric base. And I make sure in their first either Olympic block or power block they go from like one basic and simple plyo, something like med ball pogos, like weighted pogos, and then they might have like a depth drop to a box jump with cleans in their first block. So it's like in the very beginning, I'm kind of like, all right, wake up, we're here, let's go. And then they'll have their strength block after that, where it's like, all right, they're locked in. Now I can get them to lift heavy. And these girls lift heavy. Easily one of the strongest female teams on campus, which I'm super proud of them about. And they own that. The only thing that prevents me from doing because I spend so much time trying to reactivate their CNS and get both power and strength in there is I don't do a whole lot of injury prevention in my programming. I'll have them either come in and do something extra. I'll give them something that they can do at the boathouse themselves. I talk with their athletic trainer every single day. She's pinned on my texts in my phone because I talk to her every single day, whether it's text or call. But a lot of the injury prevention stuff, it's tough because it's inevitable with the nature of the sport. And things like rib fractures, I've never really had to work with before I had rowing because
Mm.
the only time I've ever worked with a rib fracture was like an acute like contact injury, and for them it's an overuse injury. So it's
Mm.
like you treat them a little bit different in a way.
So again, I like what you said there because you can't prevent injuries. The most you can do is mitigate them.
Mhm.
What do you do in that case when they are coming in with those overuse injuries?
I will modify my lift up and down if it means that they can still be on the water in the morning. So if it's something it's like, okay, rowing in the morning doesn't bother me, but by the time I get to lift, something like activating and locking in my lats for a trap bar deadlift isn't feeling great because I just rode 24K on the water that morning. If that's the case, like cool, that's fine. Let's hit a leg press instead. Let's hit a belt squat instead. Something that might not affect that area as much. And then if they're already feeling this pain, they're in with our athletic trainer doing some sort of treatment. They have some sort of plan where they are already attacking that area. So I kind of look at, cool, let me work on literally everything else except for that. So maybe they won't do upper body with me, but I'll do everything lower body, anything that just doesn't bring their pain level up. So they'll still come to me if they're like a 2, 3, 4 out of 10 pain level. And I just said, okay, just don't make it a 3, 4, or 5 level pain. Don't
Mm.
let it go up. And if there is something that makes it go up, differentiating between pain and soreness, then I'll change it. And I will change it. You can come up to me in the middle of lift when I'm coaching somebody else and I'll change it immediately. So the think on the fly that we always teach like our young coaches when they're first starting out is really being applied by me. every single day.
How does that sort of different to your track and field? Like, what is their schedule like, and how is their lifts different?
Yeah, so with track and field, I'm in a unique position because our track and field coaches are all strength and conditioning coach certified through USATF. So like if I can't be at lift for whatever reason, for example, I have women's basketball too. So if I leave for a game, they can cover their own lift. So we collaborate a lot on our programming. We do a lot of contrast programming. We find that it helps them the most. We have a lot of super twitchy athletes, especially in our sprints group, of course, but our pole vaulters are super springy as well. So the biggest challenge there is going between, and I'll shout out Coach Tosh. She was at FSU and now she's with Cincinnati women's basketball. She used to have this huge whiteboard wall in her office. And I'm talking from like top left corner to bottom right corner, had this whole thing about the spectrum between super strong jumpers and super springy jumpers. And that this is like just in a vertical jump for any athlete. So there's super strong people and super springy people. How do we get them like kind of close to the middle without compromising their natural ability
Natural.
to do either side? So I would say with track and field, that's my biggest no, I won't even say battle because it's not like a bad thing. It's just the thing that I spend the
Have to
most brain
consider the
power
most.
on, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All the brain juice goes there. For them, unless something happens in practice that day, because I'll go to practice sometimes, and if I see like, all right, this person looks like they're attached to the floor, like maybe we're lifting them too heavy too often, and they just look heavy,
Mm,
whereas they usually don't. And you kind of build a coach's eye for that, and that's through the relationship with the athlete, the relationship with the coach, and just repetitively watching how that athlete naturally goes about any movement. So those are things I can change between practice and lift, which is maybe a 15 to 30-minute time period, but I could probably plan their stuff out a little bit more. So I kind of know what I'm doing for 4, 5, 6 weeks with them. Whereas with women's rowing and their overuse things and things that might come up during the day, even not in practice, those are some things where it's like I'm changing that on the fly in lift. And sometimes it's not going in team builder because I don't have time to go on my laptop and change that in team builder for them.
shout out to Team Builder.
Shout out to team builder.
Number one team sponsor. But no, I think again, it's Team Builder is great for that usage. It's like you can adapt so quick, and even like
Absolutely.
if the whole team's on a program, you can make it specific to a group or a athlete very quickly. And I think that's like again, I've spoken to about this a lot, and it's like obviously as a team and as a group of athletes, it's great to just go off one thing, so like people can work out together.
Hmm.
But then it's like, is there enough changes to make it specific to said athlete as well?
Mm.
Like, because athletes do need different things depending on their mechanics. Like, I know we've previously spoke about this, but it's the coach's eye versus testing. Testing's great, but you also can't, like, if you have an athlete that is just glued to the floor that day, like,
Mm.
if you notice that, testing it is just going to confirm what you already know. So
Right,
it's
right.
like, to save time, do I need to test it? Like, is that a must thing? If I can physically see, okay, he's not there, let me switch up a
Hmm.
little bit. When you do switch these up, like, what is your go-to thing to make sure that they are still getting taken care of?
Yeah. Dang, what is my go-to? Well, I will say, as far as testing, if it's something that I already test every week, like RSI or vertical jump or non-counter movement jump, something like that, I will still test them, even if I see like, yeah, you are just gravity is really working hard on you today. I'm still going to test it just so that I have the data and I will just see that drop. And so the coaches can just see that drop. And then we can kind of say, okay, over 4 years, if the past 2 years during October, like
Mm.
basically Penn's midterms last all of October, these kids are
Oh, so
balls of
they're going
stress.
through it.
Oh, they're going through, they're like at their wits' end right now. And we're not letting up at all, but we do notice a drop in some athletes in October, just outside of athletics stress, basically. And so like maybe they're not sleeping well, they're probably not eating well, they're up studying until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, that kind of stuff. If I know for a fact that October is just a hard time, there's no way that I can do my best programming in October and expect it to be done well. So that's something I will humbly and happily change everything that I have to do, even though that might not be the case at Florida State University, University of Washington, whatever it is. My go-to thing to change, I would say a majority of the time, even if it is somebody who just looks like they're glued to the ground, I would say the biggest room for error and where I see people lack in their technique the most is their plyos. So even though I see them glued to the ground, it doesn't mean everything that you do today is going to be a jump. Maybe we have like speed sets in our squat where it's like, okay, I just want you to hit this many meters per second on your squat instead of going with our safety pin quarter squat where we're doing like double or triple our body weight.
Mm.
Things like that, where it's like I can keep the same movement pattern, but I'm just asking them to channel a different energy into it. Whereas something heavy, I'm going to be asking them to lock in and like really drive their feet through the floor. Or on a speed squat where it's like I'm asking them to just move faster. Even though I'm asking them to move heavyweight fast, but I want them to feel like they're moving fast. They don't feel like they're moving fast with heavy weight, even though I can say, yeah, they're moving that pretty fast for how heavy that is. I'm going to take the weight down and be like, no, I want you to feel like you're moving fast. And then that could be the difference between regular like body weight squat jumps or body weight box jumps to doing like a band assisted jump where it's like, I need you to feel yourself getting off the floor. And it doesn't mean that practice the next day is going to be different, but I think it means that they just need to feel something in their body to be like, oh, this is where we are. This is where we're supposed to be. And some of those things will change, especially as we get closer to indoor season. I like to do that kind of stuff towards the end of the week to do like a meet simulator type of thing. So we do our heaviest stuff in the beginning of the week and our fast and light stuff at the end of the week. I'm more susceptible to changing the end of the week to faster stuff. The beginning of the week, I try and keep Monday. If that's the only day we do heavy stuff, I need them to get in there and at least do that.
So 2 questions on that. With your pin squats and the changes to the program, you're kind of limiting range, but still pushing that intent to move things fast, move and feel faster. Is that something that you're doing to not cause as much fatigue and stress to that muscle or that body part? Or is it more from a quality movement standpoint?
A little bit of both. I think as for track athletes in particular, and because I don't know what they're putting in the water these days, but these guys that are coming in, especially my male sprinters, are just like 6'4", 6'5", and I'm like, is this the basketball team or is this my sprint squad? Like, let me know, because then getting them down into like a full range of motion squat is already hard for them. We do a lot of that in like September and the beginning of October. I would say like we spend mostly 4 to 6 weeks doing that. Oh, that's a lie. Maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So like this is the last week that we're probably doing that with our sprinters. I changed it up a little bit for we call it our vertical jumps group. So anybody that's a pole vaulter or a high jumper or a multi, and they're doing a little bit less range of motion stuff because they're now getting into doing all of their events instead of, for the multis more specifically, all of their events and full approach jumps for the vertical jumpers. So I've changed their stuff already to quarter squats because I'm also teaching them locking in for like a 135 trap bar deadlift is not the same as locking in for a 400-pound quarter squat, right? So like it's just going to be a little bit different. So I'm teaching our freshmen some of that. For our sprinters, I would say, yeah, it's a little bit of a injury prevention type thing, but it's also kind of getting that like end range of motion power through the floor. So like a quarter squat, especially for somebody who's like a high jumper, or a quarter squat or a half squat from the pins for somebody who's exploding out of the blocks. That's kind of like what we're teaching them, more of like, it's more for like making it a concentric movement and taking a little bit of the eccentric out of it. We utilize that a lot because I would really love to have, I guess, like some other equipment to do some other things. Like we do some overcoming ISOs against like the bottom of the pins and stuff like that as well. But again, we just do a lot of contrasting movement. So a lot of my unilateral stuff might be full range of motion, like split squats. I might do like front foot elevated, so they're really getting that knee and ankle flexion pretty deep. I tell them to usually go down like an elevator down like an escalator instead of an elevator, if that makes sense. So they go a little bit more knee over toe to stimulate that patellofemoral end range of motion. And I'll do that with a quarter squat. Whereas other times I might do kind of like split squat POGOs where they're not going all the way down. And I might do that with a full range of motion back squat, if that makes sense.
You were talking about the pole vaulters.
Yeah. So basically what I said was I put them on quarter squats starting this week, whereas our sprinters might be a little bit later. And with them doing their full approach jumps and our multis are like gearing up on pretty much training all of their events, and their training load is a lot higher because as we get closer to indoor, they need to have practiced all of their events. I put them on quarter squats for some of it, definitely for injury prevention, but making sure that I'm giving them enough time to get that like force development training and learning how to lock in with 400 pounds on their back rather than locking in with like a 135 rep bar deadlift
Mm.
type of thing, especially with our freshmen. We have a pretty young team, which also then goes to me, even if there's like 18 people in this vertical jumps group, I might have two or three different programs going on because we have an elite level high jumper, we have an elite level multi, and we have some crazy talented pole vaulters. So they might not all need the same things at the same time, but I don't have all of them doing full range of motion. But in our sprint squad, the big contrast that our coaches like to do are not just going from like a regular simple like French contrast where it's like a jump, a weighted jump, a full range of motion weighted squat or something like that. We'll also do things where it's like limited range of motion unilateral and full range of motion bilateral, and then vice versa
Mm.
too. And then mixing up those plyos where it's like we might do band assisted POGOs and band resisted split squat jumps. And then those split squat jumps might not be full range of motion where it's like your knee goes down to the floor every time, but I might have with a band assisted POGO have a full range of motion like Hatfield split squat. And oppositely, I could have like a band resisted split squat and a full range of motion barbell back squat. So the contrast comes from not just resisted to assisted, it also goes like
Ranges.
unilateral, bilateral, it goes range of motion. I think when I researched most about contrast, my biggest thing I was super naive about is thinking that it was just the weight that you were
Mm.
carrying was the contrast. And now I'm like this like breaking the fourth wall
Yeah.
like dimension of, oh my God, there's so many other contrasting things that we could do. And I definitely give a huge shout out to all the track coaches I've ever worked with that have helped me out. I think Coach Hurston, who's at Texas Tech, was like the one that really cracked the code for me in my mind of like, wow, I need to think of this in 4D and not in like two dimension.
Mm. I think it opens you up to a lot more stimulus that you can chase.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I sometimes help a friend of mine that has a gym with some of his classes. He has this class called Mashup. So, Mashup can be like anything, like mashup in
Mm-hmm.
styles and different classes and whatnot. So, I was playing around. I had one session with him and I played around with like a mashup of energy systems. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I send them on long runs, I send them on medium terms at runs, and then I send them on sprint runs during the class. And it was
Mm-hmm.
actually quite fascinating. And they had like circuits in between. So it was like a paired one was in the gym doing the workout, the other one ran. As soon as they're back, they would switch.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite interesting to see like just what happens with it. A lot of people tend
Yeah.
to hate you after it, but that's besides the point. But it is like breaking the fourth wall when like you're taught one thing for like very specifically for
Mm-hmm.
one way of doing it. But then like, okay, but like what happens if now I add into like partials, unilateral, bilateral, like what happens then? And
Yeah,
I think as coaches we should always strive to learn something
for
new
sure.
and challenge our way of thinking. Like I love playing devil's advocate with myself. Like when I'm programming
Mm-hmm.
or when I'm coaching, when I'm thinking of these theories, these methods, these experiments that I want to do, it's like, okay, but like, so what?
Right.
Like,
Right.
you're wanting to do this, so like, why? What can you get
Right.
from it? And again, I think it becomes an enjoyable thing where you're like, now you're challenging your own programs. Because like, I
Absolutely.
know growing up through this industry, a lot of the older mentors will sit you down, you present a program, they tear it apart, ask you for every justification under the sun. But like I think that's very important. Like you
Absolutely.
can't just throw shit at the wall, hope it sticks.
Yeah. I
So
definitely
it's
had that experience as an intern at Maryland, and Seth Dieters was like, well, what if the equestrian coach doesn't want them to do Olympics? And I'm like, okay, like this is what I'll change, I guess. I remember being so annoyed. I like turned red. I could barely talk because he was pissing me off so much. And obviously, I have a great relationship with him, but at that moment, he really pissed me off, and I'll tell him to his face today. But those are important. And like I do suggest like people who are looking to employ different things or apply different things to their programs, such as contrast. So it's like start with one element.
Hmm.
And once you get like comfortable with one element, then add a second element. Don't try and do everything at once because I think one of the big things I see is that like everybody, if I say like make a 4 week program and they put every single possible idea they can in that 4 weeks, and I'm like, then where do you go from there?
Hmm.
Like, what about week 5? What are you doing? And then they're kind of like, oh, like I guess I didn't like think that far. And I'm like, you do have to think about like, yeah, you might want dumbbell incline bench press right now, but or you might want barbell incline bench press right now, but it's like, are you going to do that for 16 weeks? Are you ever going to change it to a dumbbell? Are you going to change it to neutral grip? Are you going to change the angle of the
Alternatives.
bench? Are you going to like put a band on it? Like what are you going to do? You have to see kind of like where it's scalable. And I think that's one of the other great lessons of playing devil's advocate. It helps you realize that you could, it's the age old there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, like every freaking
Hmm.
strength coach always says. But that's where you figure it out. Is somebody challenging you on it, you challenging yourself on it, and also just having that scalable, like, yeah, you can make a 4 week program, but how does it turn into a 12 week program? How does this turn into an annual plan? How do you have a 4 year college student athlete who either starts every game or, competes in every event? How do you make sure that they are stimulated every single session?
I think as well, like it's working back from it, and like when's their big competitions, when's their
Yeah,
like
yeah.
least important competitions, and like I think as coaches we need to again, it's just not throwing shit at the wall hoping it sticks. Like
Hmm.
I always say that, and it's like okay, you're doing this specific lift for what reason? Like what
Hmm.
reason is there? Like can you scale it? Like what's the
Hmm.
progressions from it? If something happens, is there regressions for it? Like if you're already starting on a barbell or a dumbbell bench press incline, whatever, is there much more that you can do to regress it?
Right,
Yeah, you can
right.
go incline press ups. Cool. They're really good at their press ups. They can do them on the floor fine. What's there for it? And again, it's yeah. I think scaling is it's a whole principle method. Like, what's their progressive overload looking like? What's their intensities looking like? Specificities, like what's it looking like? And I think we get caught up on, oh, I want to use French contrast or conjugate or
Hmm.
fuck it, you name it. Like, but like, what's the fundamental principles in it? Like,
Yeah.
and all these methods are great, but like, they were made for a very specific coach and athletes. Like, you're not guaranteed to get the
Hmm.
exact copy paste athlete that they have. So like, how does that play that into these methods of yours?
Yeah, I 100% agree. You have to kind of, and I think that I'm in my coaching journey at this point where it's like I have some elite athletes where it's like you just simply can't be on the program that I plan to have, like even a college senior on. So I have like a crazy talented high jumper from Singapore. And there are conversations that me and him can have that like somebody else who's like good at their event, me and them might not be having because their training age is lower, right? So, but with Campton, I can chat with him and be like, I want to see you do this. Like this is very like I'm throwing shit against the wall and seeing if it sticks, but I have to see you do it
Hmm.
for me to know if it sticks. And so I'll have him do like a set, ask him how he feels, have him do another set like in a superset with something else that I want to pair with it. And he can have a candid conversation with me and be like, I like that or I don't like that. And I ask him like, where do you feel it? Why do you like it? And he's able to give me like pretty accurate response for that. And then I can be humble enough to say, I don't like it. So this is
Hmm.
what I'm going to change. And we'll do that during his lift block. Like it doesn't have to be like this like planned out. I have to meet with you before lift type of thing. I'll change it right then and there. And I'm thankful that he's the type of athlete that we can have those conversations with. And there's quite a few athletes that I have those conversations with. But I think that's what's really fun about, well, yeah, the track and field team, like they come in as a team. It's obviously an individual sport.
Mm.
So I'm able to have those conversations, and that's where a lot of the like relationship building comes into because they're willing to see me screw something up and like be like, no, fuck it, I don't like that. And they're not going to judge me off of it. They
Mm.
know that like they can see the wheels turning. They know that they're not the expert in this, but they also know like I'm not an expert either in them. I might be
Mm.
an expert in somebody else, or I might be an expert for the sake of like, I mean, I actually don't think I'm an expert in anything, but I might be really well versed in high jump athletes that I've coached before, but they weren't camped in. So why would I act like, well, this is exactly what's going to work when he tells me, I don't really think I feel it where you want me to.
Mm.
So I'm humble enough to at
Yeah,
least
I would
be like, yeah,
actually,
it's not working.
I would actually disagree with you in the terms of you're not throwing shit at the wall hoping it sticks. You're actually
Mm.
experimenting, and that's two very different
Yeah,
things
that's
that
fair.
I speak about, anyways. And it's like, do you actually give an example where you ask people to program and they just throw everything that they know at the program and that's a
Hmm.
program? I would say that that's throwing shit at the wall hoping it sticks. When you're experimenting, it's like you've got a different athlete in front of you that you've
For sure.
maybe not got over all your sports, all your athletes. It's like this very, again, the bell curve. Some athletes are here, some here. You want this, but it's like, what are you doing for either end of it? I think
Hmm.
you're experimenting with what you already know to make sure that the program is effective for them in a sense.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, check me on that.
Yeah,
I like when people hold me accountable.
yeah. It's not again. It's not holding you accountable. It's telling you that
Tell me what it is.
what you're doing is good because like you're challenging them for their level. Because so me and Paul Comfort had this conversation at a recent event that we were both at,
Hmm.
and it was kind of like when we're getting our athletes to national standards, right? What does that mean?
Hmm.
It's just at the high level, what's the average, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
do we want to be average? Like,
And how you better than average.
if we're below it, yeah, sure, let's meet the average. But if
Hmm.
we're already at the average, like, do we stay there or do we get better? So it's kind of like
Right.
this
Right.
thing where, like, to your point, we have to make adaptations to our program, our way of
Hmm.
coaching to match their level. And again,
Hmm.
sports isn't about the coaches, right? As much as we all like to believe that we fucking did it, like the athletes put in the reps, the athletes put in the
Right.
time. So it's
Right.
their program. So like we're kind of doing them a disservice if we're not matching that.
I agree. And I think Ivy League student athletes, for me, they're super smart. You're not doing one over on them. Like, there are some times where I'm like, yeah, this kid does not know what I'm talking about. But, like, for example, I have one of my other high jumpers is like, if he can't put his stuff on perch, he does not want to do it because he loves looking at his own data. And I'm
Mm,
like, hell yeah, I love that. I might not look at all of your data all the time, not for the sense of like, I don't care. It's mostly like, you probably have a little bit more time than I do to look at it. But at the same time, like I'm looking at your data in a couple of weeks. I'm not looking at it every day. He wants to look at it every day, which is completely fine. Mark is awesome. But he loves to see, he's the type of person that compares himself to himself,
mm,
which is what I want our athletes to do. I want them to be getting like the 1% better every day. And I have other athletes that are like, is there ever going to be a time where it's like you're coaching me and you run out of ideas or you run out of like things to make me better? I said, no, you're just going to expand my knowledge,
mm,
but like I'm not going to run out of ideas. I haven't done everything that I possibly could do for all of my student athletes. And if I have, then I would quit my job,
yeah.
right? Like being in this job is like you're signing up to be a lifelong learner. And if you're looking to find the end all be all answer to something and you think you've found it and then you just want to live with that and you don't want to ever try and make it better, then yeah, you've lived out your time and like retire, do something else. But like you should be striving to do something better each time. And sometimes it's like just going back to the basics and making that better. Going back to the basics of like, hey, I'm going to do the same exact program I did last year, but this time around, I'm going to give you guys a wellness survey of like asking you how much you slept and what your quality of sleep was. Like, there are some people that do that, and that's different. That's still trying to make it 1% better. Whether people believe in like the surveys like that or not, that's just an example. But you should be pushing to make it more. And I would never tell my athletes like, yeah, this is it. This is
Mm,
exactly what you have to do, and you're going to win a national championship because of this program. They could do that program and just choke that day, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's important as well. It's like, so as an intern, I always try to do a little bit more than what was asked. And again, it's
Hmm.
not anything to do with me trying to be a fucking blowhard. It's like I always want to challenge myself. Like
Right.
there was one day we were introduced with manual resistance exercise. That was like
Okay.
we were just introduced to one lift that was manual resistant. So I asked like what it does, how can I apply it, blah 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 blah. I would then make programs just using that. I could
Mm.
really constrain myself. Like obviously use the fundamentals, upper, lower, push, pull, total bodies, like whatever you want to split it down as. And I just like try
Hmm.
to create programs based on that one singular constraint. And then we learned about like, so then I applied that to different like pieces of equipment in the gym. Like, can I make a program for everything that I have in the gym, but just on that one piece of equipment? So like
Right.
it kind of gives you like this library of things that you can do if you don't have that thing. Because like weight room to weight room, it'll change massively unless you're like at that
Yeah.
power five, like elite level collegiate. Like the budgets might just not be there. Like even in pro
Right. Right.
sports,
Right.
especially in Europe, like you're not getting the fucking D1 power five
Yeah.
weight rooms. So it's like, can I still do everything that I need to, even though I don't have that? Like a big thing for me is I love GHR machines. Fucking
Yeah.
love them. But not all gyms are going to have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I've actually seen more gyms without it than I have with it. So like
Yeah.
can
Probably
I
same.
still
Or like outdated ones.
but like can I still get the same work that I could do on that
Hmm.
somewhere else? Answer is yes.
Yeah,
You
for
just have to
sure.
think a little bit harder.
Yeah. And the combination of different things that you can do makes it a whole different program too.
Hmm.
But with that, I actually want to ask you a question because I know
Okay.
I have my own answer to it. But like the first time that you got to experiment in front of an athlete where you're like actually thinking, or they maybe like threw a curveball at you, were you kind of like, damn, I'm not good at my job?
This might be a two-parter. So one, I've had an athlete, so we're the same age, and I started coaching him at like 17, 18. He's a sprint athlete, so he's very twitchy. And the thing is, he's very responsive to stimulus. So like he'll adapt to
Hmm.
anything I want, which is fantastic. But you quickly run out of things to do with him. So like I've always loved to research. So like I've always just like if I don't know something or I want to elicit something in him, I'll look for different methods or I'll combine different methods
Hmm.
to make sure that he's getting what he needs to keep progressing. The seasons I've had him for, he's always won more than he's lost. So that's always been a positive.
Hmm.
Now, because of this podcast and the amount of people and quality of people I speak to, I always feel like I don't know everything. Like
Hmm.
this podcast is a great humbler because like I speak with like the experts of that specific field. So like
Hmm.
I always like, oh, shit, I really don't know what I'm talking about. So let me listen, let me learn.
Right.
So I constantly feel that, constantly.
Hmm.
But like for me, I love it because like by the time this episode comes out, it'd be like 17 to 20. So like there's a lot I don't know. And like each
Yeah.
episode brings something else. So it's like this is what I love about it as well. Is like I'm constantly learning. Like I'm constantly looking for ways that I can challenge and make a difference in my programs. If that makes any sense and answers your question
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But has there ever been like a time where he kind of questioned you and you kind of thought like, damn, this like experimentation, like you said, the difference between throwing shit against the wall and seeing if it sticks
Hmm.
and experimenting with somebody. I think the first time that I did that, when was the first time I did that? Probably at FSU, one of the distance runners that I had, he kind of like trained a little bit more alone because when they went from cross country season to their track season, he was like the only steeplechaser he had
Mm.
and he was kind of like learning it. So he's learning how to hurdle and he'd never done it before. And he's actually one of my former athletes that I was like, when he graduated, I was like, all right, yeah, like call me up when you want to be a strength coach. And now he called me up like a couple years ago and he's like, I think I want to be a strength coach. But he always challenged me on stuff. And at the very beginning, I was like low key defensive where I was like, because I said so type of thing. But I
Mm.
was like, that's not a valid answer. Like he's actually trying to learn.
Yeah.
And for me, it helped me look back on myself and say like, okay, like what does and doesn't work for
Mm.
this program. Whereas I'm like, if I think about this program for somebody, I'm thinking this is going to work for him. And I probably still have a video on my phone of like teaching me how to do a hurdle jump. I was like, wow, I've never seen you be unathletic before. And
Yeah.
like to think that like you're learning how to hurdle and like you're one of my more athletic athletes, watching you do that, I was like, oh, we need to actually scale this back a little bit.
Mm.
And so the experiment part where I was like, holy shit, I just did something that's not working, like troubleshoot right
Mm.
away. It's okay to do that in front of an athlete, especially somebody who you're expanding your knowledge for,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think I understood your question differently to what you asked. So he hasn't, that specific athlete hasn't questioned me at all. He's just like, whatever you want me to do, I'll just do it, which are
Yeah,
awesome
yeah.
athletes to have.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
when I was at UW, there was athletes who wanted to know why and how a little bit more. Again,
Yeah.
it's a different level of sport, but like also like he was very analytical. Like he had to know why and how every single time, which like that then
Hmm.
becomes a little bit more challenging because like not only are you coaching them, but you're also having to be like, okay, this is the justification behind it.
Hmm.
I got asked about bench press, and I think he was a D lineman. Yeah, he was a D lineman, and I was like, he was like, what's the purpose of bench press? And I don't bench press on the field. And I was like, all right, okay, let's take a look back into your sport. Do
Right.
you like how do you start? And he's like, oh, I start on like squat position, blah blah blah. Okay, then what's the next action? When the
Hmm.
whistle, well, when the ball snaps, like what's your next action? And he's like, oh, it's this. And he showed me the push, and I was like, okay, so like, is it beneficial?
So,
And he's
did you
like,
answer your own question?
yeah. So that's kind of the way I approach those questions. If I genuinely don't know, I will tell him like, hey, give me a couple hours, let me figure something out because I don't know
Hmm.
100% the reason for this or why this is happening. Again, I take things very practically. So although I don't believe in sport specific, but I do believe in movement quality for your sport. So
Hmm.
whatever movement qualities there is in your sport, I'll try and match.
Hmm.
And then I kind of also look at what's the opposite to that, because I want you to be strong. I want you to be balanced. So I want you to be at least like a 2-to-1 ratio where they're not as strong, but like they can still support that. So I rely a lot on that. And the explanation wise, it's more like trying to link them back to what they do. Because I
Yeah.
think like if you can visually create this image for them, they're also more
Hmm.
likely to buy into the program and not question you as
Definitely.
much.
Yeah. That's happened with me a lot.
Yeah. Again, I don't like overcomplicating explanations. I think that like they're not strength and conditioning coaches, they're not sports scientists. I'm not going to tell them to hinge at 45-degree angle because that's better for their hamstrings,
Right.
right? This targets your bicep femoris more. Sick.
Right.
That's cool for
Cool.
me, but like means fuck all to them. So like I'll keep it very simple and just be like, hey, let's think about actions you do on the field. Can we match them
Hmm.
or does it translate to them? If you're
Hmm.
pushing a lot of your sport, I want you to pull because I want you to snap back as fast as you can to then push as hard as you can. That type of
Yeah.
thing. That's yeah, that's kind of how my explanations go.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think there's always going to be the athletes that are like, well, you didn't play my sport. I'm like, okay, and I've watched, I live on Earth and I have two eyes, and I've
Mm,
watched your sport before, especially when I coached football. Like I was at a private facility when I first coached, like a football team who kind of like it was Bobby Smith's private
mm,
gym, reach your potential training, and they had a high school team that would come in their off season. It's like I'm teaching them field movements, and I'm like, all right, I know how somebody moves on the field, right? Like one, I went to school for this, and two, like I've done these things myself to teach myself these
mm.
movements. And so like as typical boys are kind of like goofing around, and I'm like, do you want to be good or do you want to be great? if you don't think that I can do it, like I demoed it.
Hmm.
Like I can show you how it's done. And actually, I have to water it down for you little knuckleheads. So a lot of the time, like it's like a little bit of like humbling them. But then when I coached college football at Monmouth, it was like it was a little bit more of like my presence and my persona than it was about my knowledge that they
Mm.
challenged. And I was like, okay, like this is my adaptability as a coach. And then the most recent one would be like, I didn't know anything about rowing when I got to Penn. I couldn't tell you what. I still don't know the I know the difference, but I don't know which one's port and which one's starboard because it's like the point of view of you sitting in the boat or point of view of you looking in the boat. It's like
Mm.
what's it and from the front of the boat or the back of the boat. So sometimes I still get mixed up and I'm going on year four, but those were like points in which I felt like, all right, I could be vulnerable with this team and tell them. I told them week one, I said, I don't know your sport, but I'm gonna. Like,
Mm.
I can promise you that, and that gives them a little bit of buy-in with me. But it also helps me program because I'm like, all right, so if I'm telling you to squat ass to grass, and then we're doing like banded back squats, what I'm trying to do is get them to drive fast through weight that's getting heavier, which is the same thing. Like they go to the catch is when they're at the front of their slide and their oar goes into the water, drive to the finish, which is where they're like fully almost extended. And I'm like, so we're working on your drive phase from your catch to your finish. That's what I'm working on. And they are able to kind of put that together a little bit more and it gets me a little bit of brownie points, but at the same time, it helps them not just respect me, but kind of respect what they're
Mm.
doing in the weight room. And it helps them do things with like a little bit more intent, maybe. And if that's what they get out of it or something, then I'm happy.
Yeah, I think it's that thing of like if they're an athlete, they're not an athlete to be in the weight room. They're an
Mm,
athlete to be doing their sport. So the more
right.
that we can translate it to what they're doing and why that makes sense for that specific thing, like buy-in is inevitably going to be there. Unless you're a complete dickhead, then the buy-in's going to be there, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like again, there's an athlete I know now doing very well, very elite athlete, hated the weight room, hated it.
Mm,
But like he knows it was needed, like he knows why it's important, but he just didn't like to
mm,
be there. So like if we can give that type of athlete the low hanging fruit to make sure that he is
mm,
available to play, like we're still at least doing our job, and he's still going out to do what he loves, which is
yeah.
playing. So it's like, do I really care about having all my lifts in if he doesn't want it? Like I need to
Right.
explain it. I need to make it enjoyable for him at least to want to come in. And I think that's what you're. I mean, at least to me, describing you're doing really well is like you're making sure
Hmm.
that there's enough in there for athletes to be like, okay, I might not love my time in the weight room, but this is how it's
Yeah.
transferring, and this is why it's making me better. And I think that is our job role. Is like
Yeah. Absolutely.
make them enjoy it so that they can play, so they can be available, so they can. Again, I always this is something that I tell my athletes and coaches. It's like I'm not here to make you like my thing isn't to make you a better athlete. My thing is to make you have longevity in your sport. Yes, by doing so, I do make you stronger. I do make you faster. I make you more powerful. I make you more agile, more whatever you want to
Hmm.
put on top. I want you to be in your sport for as long as humanly possible. Like
I
that is
agree.
my goal.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, and not to be negative or anything, but there are some coaches that like they want to be known for what they're doing with their athletes, and a lot of the time forget that this is a labor of love and it's an act of service,
Mhm.
and you sometimes need to step outside of yourself and what you want. And I agree with you 100%. I have had so many athletes, like there's one in particular like that's still at Penn right now. He's a heavyweight rower. He's 6'8", and when I first got to Penn, one of the things I decided to do was all of their programs were on paper. It was kind of like before I learned how to use Team Builder, and it was right at the beginning of the year. So I'm like, my first program is not going to be on Team Builder because I want my first program done right. And then I want to be able to use Team Builder because then I can make it better. And so everything was on paper. And one of my things was, I want you to write on the back of your program, like one thing about yourself. And some of them wrote like, oh, like I'm a coffee connoisseur. I love cats, like random shit like that. But then this one kid put like, I hate lifting. I do not want to be here. And I was like, cool. Thanks for sharing that with me. And so the way we built our relationship was like, I'm annoying, and I'm like, hey Wyatt, favorite hour of the day, I'm sure, like let's get it. But then I'm able to like take a step closer and level with him and being like, listen, this is all I care about today. You have 5 movements. These two are the ones that I care about the most. If you can do those with intention, if we get to the rest of them, I don't care really. Like some of them are like, yeah, it's injury prevention stuff or like the really tiny muscle movement type things. But at the end of the day, if you could do the meat and potatoes of this part of it, and if he can say like, this is what I can give to you today, and it's those 2 big movements, I'm fine. I don't need my whole program done to a T day one on this. I'm learning this kid and he's learning to even like it here. And then I found out like midway through the semester, their favorite playlist for the team is called Divorced Dad's Rock Playlist.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. So, okay, so I was just introduced to this type of playlist this week.
It's
Actually,
very,
you know how I put that story up of like playlists I use in the gym?
oh yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
one of the suggestions, and I was like, what the fuck is that?
Absolutely. It's a lot of Creed,
Yeah, so they sent me a link to one of
Shine
their
Down.
playlists, and I was like, motherfucker, this is what I listened to when I was a teenager.
Yes,
And like,
like The Killers.
yeah, like I didn't, like, no one forced that playlist on me. I listened to that playlist, and now I'm fucking a divorced
Yeah.
dad in the 20s.
And then it became cool to like shit on Nickelback. And I'm like, that's the entire Divorced Dads play.
Yeah, I still love
My heavyweight
Nickelback.
crew team loves them. I can't say that I love Nickelback, but like I'm not gonna not sing Photograph. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's their favorite playlist. And then this kid who hates lifting, I already have to like reason with him to get him to do at least the important parts of my movement with intention. And he thankful that he was like, I can do that. He wasn't giving me a hard time about doing like the most important stuff. And then he was like, do you think that you could throw like some Katy Perry and like Lady Gaga in the mix? And I was like, absolutely. I definitely can. Like, if that's what you want to listen to that gets you to do the full lift, hell yeah.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Big Katy, I hate Katy Perry, but if he needs to listen to Dark Horse after listening to like Freebird for the last 10 minutes, like, yeah, let's do it.
I rate it.
Yeah. And he's just like this big blonde 6'8" dude who, of course, he hates lifting. Of course, he hates
It
lifting. His
sucks.
femurs are the size of my body.
Yeah, it sucks. So this is
So,
another great point, and so I've actually the client I had before this podcast. She has longer legs than she has torso, and her arms are pretty
mm,
fucking long too. So deadlifting sucks, but it's a lift
oh
that
yeah,
she wants to become good at. And I was like, fucking sick.
cool.
Not don't care for deadlifts. They're good. They
Right.
do a purpose. Sick. But she wants to get good at it, so I was like, sick. Let's do it. So
Hmm.
like deadlifting sucks because she has longer legs. So like, am I going to be a dick about it and be like, no, you have to deadlift from the floor because that's what the textbook says?
Hmm.
No, like I've put her plates
Right.
underneath. If she wants to get good,
Right.
she's not going to be a power lifter. So like, she doesn't have to go from the. But like, yeah, just like these little adaptations to make it easier for your athletes or better for them. Like putting plates underneath it that takes what 5 seconds. Adding 2 songs to a playlist 5 seconds. Like
Hmm.
it's usually these little things that make a great program. Like it's not the
Yeah.
content of the program. It's what everything else around it that makes the program great. And again, it goes
Yeah.
back
You have to
to
create the environment.
and like to your part about like the questions that you have them right, or not right but answer. It's like I have this thing when I get a new group in. There's the questions of the day. Everyone gets the
Hmm.
same question. Everyone gets the same chance to reply. So like I'll go around, hey, what's your favorite ice cream? Like that's so like there's a progression to this. What's your favorite ice
Hmm.
cream? Favorite movie series? Then it becomes a little bit more challenging, like creative. Like if you were stuck on an island, what's 3 things that you'd bring?
Hmm.
And then last one is like as an athlete, like what's your goal? Like what is your goal as an athlete? And it kind of throws them back a little bit. And it's like,
Hmm.
I mean, I just want to perform. Okay, it's like yeah, but like, do you just want to turn up and do it, or do you want to
Right.
have tangible targets that you can work towards. Like, is it making the national team? Is it get shaving like a millisecond off? Is it like what do you want to work on? And then like that kind of shows them that I'm more interested in like their development than just like what I want to do. And then, I think that's why I like these types of questions. And then you also have like when it comes to like hobbies and things that they're interested in, like as a coach and as a human, there's no added labor to my day if when I finish, I go home and I do a little bit of research on said topics, said hobby, said theme, to at least make sure I can talk to them about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's
Like
not
one of my
sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Like it's not hard for me to like be able to talk to them about it. It shows that I'm
Yeah,
interested in more than just the athlete. It's the human.
absolutely. One of my kids loves like fly fishing, and I'm like, I've never been fishing. Like, well, I've been surf fishing. Like I grew up on the beach, but like even then, like growing up next to a beach, I really haven't been on a boat much, and I don't even think that you need to go on a boat to go fly fishing. I think that's more of like a lake.
Yeah, lake,
And
river.
I have no problem looking and like I probably don't look dumb. I probably just look interested or curious. But for me, I'm like, I'd rather look dumb, like I don't know what I'm talking about, to ask them and give them a chance to tell me about something that they're passionate about, just to get them to talk to me.
Mm.
And like, and I'm not talking about like all my kids, like none of them want to talk to me. Most of them want to talk to me too much. But there's always like the one kid who like slithers off in the background where I'm kind of like, hey, what are you doing back there? Like, how's your day going? What are you doing this weekend? And if he's like, yeah, I'm going fly fishing with my friends, I'm kind of like, interesting. Where are you going to do that? What do you need to do that? How is that different from boat fishing, deep sea fit, like all this kind of stuff? And I don't know shit about fishing, but like which means I have a ton of questions about it
Mm.
because I've never been fishing. So, and if I have to look a little dumb or if I have to be able to like make myself look like a goofball sometimes just to get them to like, all right, disarm and like chill out. Yes, you're technically at like practice or you're at lift, but like you can breathe. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are some coaches that kind of like want them just locked in and turned on at all times, but that's more exhausting
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And there are some times where I'm going to ask them to do that. But then if you're in between sets and like switching weights and you're not on a timed rest, then like chat with each other. Ask your senior, ask the freshman what they think they're going to major in. Like all of that kind of stuff, and also build a relationship between them, not just you to them. But yeah, and it's you're right. It takes no time and barely any effort to just be interested in something that
Mm-hmm.
they're interested in because you're asking them to be extremely vulnerable in something that most of them, I would say 90% of my athletes don't have weight room experience when I have them. They might have like, I lifted with my dad like a
Mm-hmm.
couple times in my garage, but like, yeah, that's different. It's a little different
Yeah.
here.
You should ask him if he makes his own flies.
I should ask him that. I do know what that is. He explained that to me. But yeah. And these kids have interesting hobbies.
Mm-hmm. And I think that so.
Interesting hobbies.
Again, I'm kind of a product of Coach Mac, and being so, he lets me into a lot of his processes and things. And
Hmm.
like his big thing is like reading wide and learning wide and how it can apply to the S&C industry. Like
Hmm.
which is fascinating. So like one example that like I do that I learned this on my own and even before I was with Coach Mac. Like I've mentioned duck by my desk.
I love that.
The theory in coding and computer science where if you have an issue, they will talk through their code, their process to this duck. And like by doing so, you
Hmm.
kind of trigger this response of like being able to identify and being able to rationalize what you're doing and why. So
Hmm.
like I'll still do the same. Like when I'm making a program for someone I have no experience in, like I'll just walk through my program to this rubber duck and I'll explain it. Hey, this is this exercise, this is why I'm doing it. And like I'll
Hmm.
go through the program. I was like, okay, actually that's longer than the session needs to be. So let me cut back.
Hmm.
Or I don't like this, let me change it to that. Maybe they're
Hmm.
not at this level, so let me regress this exercise to that. And I think it's, again, I love it because it's like, it gets me to, if someone was to walk into the office, they'd think I was a fucking psychopath. But hey, but it's again, it's reading wide and making sure that you can bring things from different industries to help yours progress.
Yeah, I feel that. I have a similar, I don't know, it's a similar theory of like having something at your desk to talk to. But for me, so like I just moved into this new apartment, or like I just kind of had this work from home setup made. And for me, I do a lot of meetings here. And I think that I'm in this season of my life where I'm doing a lot of, I guess I want to say like passion projects that I've never done before. So like moderating a lot of panels and speaking to a lot of people who I know are like way more successful in the field that I'm interested in. I really love the idea of like student athlete development. And I do a lot of that stuff on the side of coaching. So I'm part of like a committee that makes sure that our student athlete affinity groups, like our Black student athletes at Penn and Athlete Ally, and all of them are supported. So I'll do a bunch of work in that sense. And for me, what I do is this might sound like really kind of lame, but I have this picture of myself and I kind of have like a do it for her type of mentality of like, I'll turn around and be like, no, you're supposed to be in this room. Like, you're fine. You don't have imposter syndrome. You're not like overstepping your boundaries. You're not doing like, and I'll just have a conversation with her back here and just be like, hey, girl, we're good. Everything's fine. Don't panic. You're learning. And yeah. And then I have my goddaughter over here who alarmingly looks like the same as I did when I was a kid. But
So that's funny.
and I have jump shot Jesus.
Nice. So that's my niece and nephew too.
I love that. But yeah, I think it's helpful to kind of have those
Yeah.
like reel it back in type of things.
So I'm a perfectionist, and it's weird to say this, but like it's been sort of diagnosed. Because it's a whole story. But like what you're saying, we're very critical of ourselves, and like we get imposter syndrome. Like again,
Absolutely.
before the podcast started, I spoke to you about Mike and Meg Stone. Like I personally feel like I have no business speaking to them, but I'm in a position where I can't speak to them. So it's like, fuck,
Right.
I'm here. So it's like
Yeah,
I get
that's
a lot
fair.
of imposter syndrome on like that side of things, where like it's, again, I know I belong here. Like I've done my shit to be here. So it's like justifying it. So me and my fiance have this thing of like, do it for little money. Like you wouldn't be
I love
saying
that.
this to yourself. Like you wouldn't be saying this to little money. So why are you saying it to you? It's like, it's kind of changing that perspective of like, okay, you're not actually talking to a human. You're talking to like your younger self. Like, would you treat them that way? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I
get it.
feel that. I've been applying that to myself as well. And like any of my friends that would attest to this is that like if they start speaking down on themselves, like I have one friend who is like big into CrossFit. He lives out in Texas. He's a firefighter and he constantly is like, oh, I'm not like, that good at that. And I'm like, what did you just say? And he'll be like, no, like I'm just like, I'm not meant to be on this. And I said, says who? Like, what do you mean? We don't talk about ourselves like that in here. And a lot of the time it like for me it takes people by surprise because I would say like I'm a very direct
Mm.
communicator because I will not skip a beat in telling you because like even when you said like, oh, Mike and Meg don't need to listen to me, I said, well, why?
Mm.
Like you're obviously asking good questions, which is why they're going to want to talk to you. And they wouldn't continue speaking or presenting if people weren't asking them good questions. So it goes to show that there are still people who I think we talked about this in our last call before the podcast as well, is like there's the art of being a good like moderator or being a good question asker or being a good podcast host, where it's like you're not just robotically
Mm.
asking like questions that you think people but you're having a conversation and getting to know somebody and asking the questions as they come up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. And then doing it for like, yeah, doing it for like little you and I do it for little me who sits back here. But it's like I've realized there are a lot of reasons that people might downplay themselves
Mm.
or just kind of say that they don't deserve or they can't do something. And I'm like, you don't have like don't be a hater on yourself
Mm.
because then all you're going to see is haters around you and like that's all you're going to pay attention to instead of like the people who support and love you. So I'm not going to join the people who are hater. I don't think I
Mm.
have like haters, but you know what I mean? Like there are some people who might even watch like this podcast and be like, "Pff, this girl has like nothing to say." And it's like, all right, cool, then don't listen. Like, I'm not going to be that same
Yeah.
person now. Like, I'll rewatch anything and
So
support whoever.
I I love this quote from David Goggins, and it's you'll never meet a hater that's doing better than you,
I did see
right?
that quote the other day
And
actually, and I'm
it's
like,
it's
wow, bars.
powerful because it's like if someone's hating on you, it's because they'll probably want to be where you are, but they can't. I
Yeah,
spoke to Bert Soren, and he said this
love
thing
him.
like he has a. This was actually on the podcast. You'll find it. But he said like I get a ton of people asking me like, "Oh, I wish I could be there." Like, and he said like it's not hard to find. Like, if you want to be here, come. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not hard. Like you just have to want
yeah,
to do it. To that, like I then spoke about this thing of like if people spent half the time they do hating on you doing the work, they'd probably be where you are.
they'd probably be next to me.
Yeah. So like
Yeah,
for like
or ahead
it's
of me.
yeah, and like for me like it's weird because like there's so many podcasts, there's so many great conversations. I don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Like I'm I'm focusing on growing what I have,
Hmm.
and like I've been fortunate enough to have the success that I have had because of that.
Hmm.
So it's like it's not to say that I don't listen to podcasts like in the same industry. I do. It's more like I'm not going to copy exactly what they do because that's just not me. Like I
Yeah,
would rather grow very slowly than do some of the stuff that's done, like the clickbaity stuff. Don't care for it at all.
yeah,
Like I would
yeah,
rather have a conversation, show the best parts of that conversation in a way that paints the speaker to be very professional, very good, as opposed to like
yeah, absolutely.
say stitching something together quite rage baity. I don't care for it.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
this job works because I care about the coaches having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. And it's
Yeah.
I would rather grow it slow and make sure that coaches know that it's an environment where they can have a real authentic conversation
Hmm.
than me stitch something together that gets me a fuck ton of views but doesn't perhaps paint you the best picture possibly. And then you're
Right,
kind of like,
absolutely.
he's kind of an asshole for that. And then I get no more speakers on it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, but I also think that you have people on here that are like they know what they're saying. Like one of the things that is my biggest pet peeve, I think about, and like I'll listen to podcasts, but I more specifically am going to listen to podcasts of people that I like personally know and support because that is a completely free of anything. Like it takes no effort to just watch somebody's 45-minute podcast and like share it to other strength coaches, like text it to them or like share it on your social media platform or do something like at least listen to it. Because a lot of the time, like when I did my first podcast, I was like, holy shit. Like I felt like I was like, damn, I'm gonna say something that's like I'm gonna sound stupid. And now it came out and I was like, I sent it to my family, of course, and like some of the closest people to me. I sent it to my family and friends and I was like, I did this cool thing and I'm kind of proud of myself, which that in and of itself, me saying that I'm proud of myself is such a huge step because I'm the type of person that just I don't feel very accomplished in anything. I just think that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But some of the closest people to me didn't even click on it.
Mm.
And I'm like, but you say you love me.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? That's like the easiest way to support somebody. And at the end of the day, like, because I like you and I like the way that you put on your podcast, I'm going to listen to every single one of your podcasts. Like, am I going to be up to date every time? Absolutely not, because I actually want to listen
Yeah.
with intent. I'm not just going to like put it on in the background. But like, I'll do a Huberman Lab podcast in the background and like pick up on a lot of things. But there's so many of them and like not all of them are things that I'm fully interested in, so I'll listen to the ones that I'm fully interested in. But for like when you know the person and
Mm.
you can support them, do it. And if you're actively not even thinking about supporting a person that has done a podcast or is hosting a podcast, then you're not a supporter, then like don't show up when they do really, really
Mm.
well either. I have no problem saying that. That's not going to put me in a bad light
Yeah.
because I
I'll
think that's just like genuine love and care.
I'll tell you a couple things after the podcast. But it's on
Okay.
that. I believe that every human has something to say and something valuable. Like, I've
Hmm.
mentioned this so many times on the podcast, and I'll keep mentioning it. There's a phrase in Portugal that translates to you can learn something from everyone, even a dumb person. You can learn not to be them.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
it's that thing where, like, okay, back up a little bit. So I
Hmm.
fortunately a lot enough get to travel a lot with my job, with some of the stuff that I do for Team Builder. So I'm always exposed to different cultures, different people. My favorite conversations have came from taxi drivers that know English but aren't from the country that they're in. Like, they're
Hmm.
immigrants of a different country. But like, you can learn so much
Hmm.
of just like world history and world news from them. Like, they're in their country, they
Absolutely.
can tell you exactly what's going on without, like, I hate to say it this way, but like the fake news that there is out there.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
Like,
Yeah.
like you learn so many raw stories from the people
Hmm.
that have went through it. And like, those conversations are great because like it gives me a different perspective and different depth on conversations.
Yeah.
As
I
silly
agree.
as this sounds, is like, again, I've got a podcast, so I know how to have a conversation, but like, how can I make the most of a conversation? So I read a couple conversational style books where it's like
Hmm.
teaching people how to have a conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest takes from it that I had is it's okay to pause before you speak. Like, you don't have
Hmm.
to like instantly say something. Like, you can take a beat, you can think of your response
Yeah.
and then say it. Because like,
Hmm.
often we want to be perceived as these people that know everything about this specific thing, or we have the answer, or we are knowledgeable, or we aren't uneducated. So we come up with the first
Hmm.
thing that we think of. But it's like, it's okay to like stop, think,
And redirect. Yeah.
and then speak. It's that's where I'm trying really hard in these podcasts and podcasts that I've been on, is like, take a second, understand the
Hmm.
question, and then speak about it.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And I went to a presentation at Penn Wharton School of Business does like these presentations that if you are a member or you're a faculty at Penn, we kind of get these emails. But one of the presentations was Brene Brown and Adam Grant, because Adam Grant is a professor here. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to that. Like, I was super pumped. Brene Brown was giving out copies of her new book. Like, she came out and shook hands with people like before the presentation started. And their conversation on stage was so like kind of organic and authentic. And I'm sure it's from obviously years of experience of them just being able to have conversations. But one of the biggest feedback things of like other faculty members that I went with was like, I love how they're willing to sit in silence until they know what they want to say. And we kind of talked about it in a way of like, well, they are experts at having a conversation. And I'm like, anybody who can talk
Mm,
is probably, or anybody who can like put thoughts together, it probably can be an expert at conversation. It's
should
just like,
be at
just
least.
because they get more, yeah, it should be. Just because they get more like screen time or they get more opportunities to speak in public, we just happen to see them
Mm,
pausing, thinking, and then answering than us in regular conversation. And I'm like, we can apply that today. Like, I can apply that in this conversation with you. I can apply this in a conversation that I have with my mom on the phone. Even though if I take a pause before I answer my mom, she's like, hello, are you there? And
yeah.
I'm like, yes, bro, I'm just thinking for a second, please. But like, she always thinks that her phone's broken. But yeah, I think it's funny how when we see these professional presentations, they're like, oh, they speak so well. And it's like, yeah, they probably have more practice speaking in front of audiences for sure. But at the same time, like those are things that you can do every day with anybody.
Hmm.
So I thought it was like funny that that was like the biggest feedback, but also I felt like I could run through a brick wall after that presentation. It was really cool.
Yeah. No, like, I think it's an art that's being lost because of social
Mm,
media.
agreed.
And it's how to interact with each other. And
Hmm.
the US is a great example of this, where like it's very split. Like, you're either one side or the other. There's like no
Hmm.
in between.
Right, right.
And like, but like, what's what's wrong with speaking to each other in a civil manner? Like,
Yeah, devoid of
yeah,
emotion. Like no matter how you feel, like what's wrong with having a conversation
yeah.
about something with somebody that you don't, even that you don't agree with,
hmm
you
I
know?
actually just remembered
Yes.
when we were talking about your program splits, you said that you have speed sessions towards the end of the week. Is that sort of targeting? This is such a switch up from what we were talking about.
Go for it. I'm ready for it.
Is that with like neuro-prep kind of aiming towards their weekend games and weekend competitions?
Yeah, so that's what I mean by like I think maybe I said this in when you couldn't hear me on the mic, but it's kind of like a meet or comp simulator. So
Mm,
it's like I want them to move their fastest on a Friday or Saturday because all of their meets are on Fridays or Saturdays. And like when I thought about programming that way, I was like, that's such like a minuscule way. But there have been plenty of times where, for example, I'm on the East Coast and when they would have obviously nationals would be at Hayward Field. If they're going to be competing at 7 o'clock at night, but it's 10 o'clock here, sometimes we'll make their lift sessions later. Not at 10, thank God. But like we would, if they would usually lift at 10 o'clock in the morning and they're now going to be competing at 10 o'clock at night, how can I get them as prepared as possible, even if it's a 1%? Let's lift at 6 p.m. at least. It's like when you might start warming up, doing things of that nature. Now, some people might say, like, that's so dumb because regardless of what you do, you're doing it the same day. But for me, if it helps even like just ease their mind of the fact that, like, with a time difference, depending on what day they fly out, you're going to feel that 3 hour difference. Then if it puts their mind at ease, even if it's a placebo effect, then that's what it
mm,
is. But that's what we try and do is that like I want them, I think for a certain amount of time, it's going to kind of settle in their bodies that they're going to adapt to, okay, our fastest days are at the end of the week.
nice. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've always been, again, when you're talking to so many people in the industry, like there's so many conflicting statements.
Hmm.
I've always loved neuro prepping because like even if it's like just makes them feel good, I'm a big fan. So I'm always interested when people use neuro prep and how they use it. Now, I think I first learned about this from I think it was a YouTuber, but like they were competing in something and they would train at the same
Hmm.
time as like they would essentially regulate their schedule around the fight. So like they would sleep on opposite hours essentially.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's always fascinating when you're talking about like matching times and making sure that they're pushing themselves at the hour that they would be competing at.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, even if it's just like kind of in their mind and it makes them feel better, then I'm willing to do that for a couple weeks leading up to a competition. It's not like I'm doing it all year round, like it'd be different if they had an international competition every other week and it's like I'm trying to figure out time differences of them like flying overseas or something like that. But, you know, I do what I can.
Yeah. Appreciate you so much for coming on today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We've kind of been talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, we've been yapping a little bit, but that's okay. And I still feel like we could be yapping, but like
No,
we'll have to do another phone call or something and check in.
so this is like a part of what I love about these podcasts is like no matter how long we've spoke for, it kind of just seems like we've scratched the surface and there's so much more
Yeah,
that we can go into. And again,
absolutely.
I always love having coaches back on. It kind of makes me feel good too because it's like, okay, so this
Hmm.
went well.
Yeah, yeah. For sure.
But if you can let everyone know where they can find you and sort of reach out.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been on LinkedIn like nobody's business lately. I don't know why. I think that LinkedIn's pretty cool. But you can search me on LinkedIn. Yep, that's my Instagram. It's my coaching Instagram. And then those are probably the only two that I'm on mostly. I'm not really a TikToker. I don't know how that all
You don't want to be.
works.
You really don't want to be.
No, I don't think I can do
Um,
it.
I limit myself to Instagram.
Yeah,
I really couldn't care less for any other platform. Again, it's
yeah,
too
that's
much.
fair.
It's too much exposure, and I get rage baited quite a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I tend to not go on much. For anyone that wants to reach out to you on LinkedIn,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's me. That red blazer. We're really driving that red blazer headshot. into the ground. So I'll send you a different picture.
No, perfect. Appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you.